Good morning. We're learning as Chutz for Shlema Filanachai Baserach. We are at the Mishnah, 5 lines from the top of Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. Hakaimitz miutai ma'akaves rubai. By a kaimitz, if you're missing part of the kaimitz, even if it's just the beat of it, and you have the rive of it is still there, it's still ma'akav. This is really just another way of saying that the entire kaimitz is mi'akav. Isarin, which is the flour, the body of the mincha. I'm not sure why we do the kaimitz first. This means a mincha has to be an isarin of flour. Miyutim makav ruba. Again, if you don't have the whole thing, it's makav. Hayayin, with wine, miyutim makav ruba. If you're missing some of the wine, the yayin of the nesachim, it's also makav. Hashem and miyutim makav ruba. The shemen that you add to a mincha, also part of it is makav, the whole thing. If you don't have the entire measure, hasailas v'hashemen ma'akven zeh. If you don't have the shemen, then the silas is not going to be kosher. It's not going to be a good mincha. You can't be mafresh. You can't take the kaimitz from it, and vice versa. Hakaimitz v'alavayna ma'akven zeh, and the same thing with the kaimitz and the lavayna. You don't have the lavayna. You put the when you take the levina, you then when you take the kaimitz, you put the levina on top of it. If you don't have both of them, then the shirayim are not going to be mutter to eat. Saktamar, my time. Where do we learn all these things from? From Amar Kra Malay Kumse, Shrei Zimni. The Torah says Malay Kumse 2 times, and we know Shana Love La'akav, when something is repeated, it means it's Ma'akav. Isaran Miyutim Ma'akav, it's Rubai, my time. Amar Kra Misilta. Says Misilta. From its silas, she'im chasha kol shu psula. That's mashma, that if anything is missing, the lashon of it should say misilas and misilta to tell you that it has to be the whole thing. Anything is missing, it's makav. Hayayim yuti makav rubai. Kacha. The Torah says the gabi the nesachim. Kacha yasa l'shara echad elayel echad elaseba kvasam izim, and it goes on to discuss the nesachim. Hashem yuti makav rubai. So the shemen, we say the miyat is ma'akav rubai. So the shemen involved in different things. The minchas nesachim from kacha. From minchas nesachim, that means the mincha that goes along with the carbon, which you do oil and yayin. The Torah says kacha. Or minchas adav amakra or mishamna. By the minchas adav, it says from its shemen shemchisa kol shu psula. Again, the hay, just like misilta, by the silas. Mishamna from the shemen tells you if anything is missing, it's possible. Hashem v'aselos ma'akman zeh. The shemen and the flour are ma'akav one another. Misilta o mishamna, and it says migirsha o mishamna. We already use silta and shamna for their own things, but it also says migirsha, which is another way of saying silas, and it says mishamna, so it's shana love la'akav. Hakaimitz v'alavayna ma'akman zeh. Akol avaynasav as kol avayna asher ala mincha. Again, it has 2 lashonos of levina, so it's shana love la'akav. Zok the Mishnah. Shnei seir Yom Kippurim ma'akman zeh. The 2 seirim of Yom Kippur, right? The sar l'Hashem and the sar l'Azazel. If you're missing one, the other one is not valid. Shnei kivsei atzeres ma'akman zeh. It's come up a lot in Menachos. You have the 2 kvasim that are brought on the morning of Shavuos. If you're missing one of them, the other one is not valid. Beis chalis, and there's 2 chalis that go along with the kivtzei atzeres, called the shtei halechem. If one of them is missing, they ma'akav one another. Shnei star ma'akvan zeh. The 2, what do you call them? The 2 orders of the lechem aponim, right? You had on the shulchan, you had 2 sets of 6. Each set is considered a unit on its own, and if you're missing one of them, the other one is not valid. Shnei bezichem achman zeh, and on top of these 2 shtei lechem aponim, there were 2 spoons full of levina, and they are also, if you're missing one of them, the other one is no good. Shnei bezichem achman zeh, yeah. Hasedarim v'abezichem achman zeh, and similarly, if you don't have the lechem of lechem aponim, the bezichem are not going to be valid. If you don't have the bezichem, the lechem aponim is not going to be valid. Beis minim shebenazir. The 2 minim of a nazir, meaning there's 2 types of bread, 2 types of chalas that are brought by the Nazir when he's finished his Nazirus, and Gimel Shebepara, and there are three, which is the I think it's the Ezoiv and Shni Soilas and Eitz Erez, Shni Soilas, and and what is the other thing? What does Rashi say? Rashi says it Gimel Sheb. Shnei Minim Shebenazir Chazer Kin Pasha Gimel Sheb Paraduma Eitz Erez ve'Ezav Shni Soilas. Right. So this is talking about the paraduma, the dalid shebetoida, and the four different kinds of breads. If you remember all the way back at the beginning, we had discussed there are four types of bread, 10 of each that you bring with a carbon toida. The dalid shebelulav, the dalid minimum of a lulav, va'arba shebemtzaira, and the four things of the mitzvah, which are the same as the three of the paraduma, it's erez, shnisa las, and ezayv, together with the tzipayra. All of these things, if you're missing any one of these avoidus or procedures that have multiple components, if any one of them are missing, it's going to be no go. Shiva hazois shebepara ma'akvezuasu. The paraduma, you take michutz la'ir and you do hazois toward the oil mayit. If they're missing any of the hazois, it's zim zayin hazois shal pnei abadim. Shal paroicha, shal mizbeach hazav. The seven hazois, if you remember, we went into the most detail when we're talking about the hazois of Yom Kippur. But also you have by some of them, not all these are by all of them, but you have also by the chatois hapnimius, you have some of these hazois. So these hazois, so zayin hazois shal pnei ben abadim is the ones between the badim of the Aron Kodesh. Shala paroiches that they would do toward the wall, the paroiches in the kodesh kodashim. Shal mizbeach hazav and in the mizbeach and the heichel. Ma'akvezu. If you're missing any of them, it's ma'akev. Yeah. So the Gemara. Shnei seira yom kippur ma'akne zeh chukah. The Torah says chukah. As you know, chukah is a lashon of means that it's ma'akev. Shnei kivsei atzeres ma'akne zeh havaya. The pasuk says, "Ve'hinif hakoyin oisem belechem habikurim tnuva l've'Hashem al shnei kvasim kodesh yiu." Lashon yiu means that it must be like that, and if anything is missing, it's ma'akev. Shtei chalois, the two chalos that come along with the kivsei atzeres. Havaya, again, it says Havaya on that as well. Which I say, Tovi Lechem Tufa Shtaim Shnei Sisraim says Tiena. Tiena is Lashon of Havaya. Shnei the pasuk says Chuk. Shnei Bezikan, the two spoons that of Levina that go on top of the Lechem. Upon him Chukah, they also have a Lashon Chukah. Hasdarin, Habezichin. What about the starim and the bezichin that the ma'akman zeh one toward the other? If you only have the lechem and not the spoons, or vice versa, it's possible. Chukah, we also have chukah on that, meaning that the pasuk says, "V'hoisel Aaron elbanav achlu b'makol kodesh Hashem, misha Hashem chak oilam." Shnei minim shebenazir. What about the two minim that you have, the two types of, I think it's the two types of bread that you have by the Nazir, the siv kenyasa, that's what you should do without any anything missing. Gimel shebepara, the eitz erez, the shni selas, the ezayv, by the para aduma that you dip it into the blood. How do you know that you need all three of them? Chukah, the Torah says chukah. Arba shebetara, the four types of bread, and the taida, the ishkas l'nazir. We already said by the Nazir that I think it says chukah. What do we say by the? We had, and it's iskis l'Nazir. Seval zevach taida shlamav. The taida is hokish to the Nazir. V'amamar shlamav l'rabba shlamei Nazir. Shlamav is a reference to shalmei Nazir, so it's a hokish to the Nazir. And since the Nazir is ma'akev, there's also ma'akev. For arba shebel tzayra, the four of the Mitzvah, meaning the Eitz Erez, Shni Soilas, the Ezav, as well as the Shnei Tziparim, T'chsev zois tia teres hamitzaira. Zois tia, that's another lashon havaya. The dalit shebelulav. You have to have all parts of the lulav. You can't just do the esrog by itself. Because you have to take all four of them together. And that doesn't just mean, let's see, Rashi, lekicha tama, arba asan ke'echad. You have to have all four of them together. Amr of Chana Barava, that which we say that it's not gonna, that they're ma'akiv one another, that's only if you, it means if you don't have them. Aval yesh le'eh ma'akiv. If you have all of them, even if you don't put them physically together, it's still going to be kosher. It means he has to take all of them. Now, the Rishonim go back and forth. Does that mean that he has to literally, he can even just do them separately? Or does it mean he just doesn't have to bundle them together? He could take them, hold them all at the same time without bundling them together. So this is a whole discussion in the Rishonim. Meisvei. Dal min shemelul. Beis mehen oisim peris, and beis mehen ein oisim peris. Two of them have peris, meaning the esrog and the lulav. The lulav is a date tree, and the other two, the hadasim and the aravas, are just not fruitful trees. Oisim peris use kukin l'shein oisim. Shein oisim peris use kukin l'oisim peris. You have to have all of them together. Ve'enam yoytzi dechavasa behen. Actually, you cool about good achas, but you're not yet with them until they're all bundled together, meaning you tie them together. That's why, it's not just for convenience that we have those little lulav strips that we used to dump time together. They require. V'chein Yisrael b'hartzah. The same thing for the Yidden to get a kapara for their avonis. Actually, you cool about good achas. They all have to be together. They all have to be as one. Shenemar, Haboyne b'shamayim aloisav v'agudasay al aretz. The Rebbeinu builds his lofty things in the shamayim, and that which is bound is al aretz yisadta. They're established on the ground. Agudasay, these bnei Yisrael are called the aguda. When are they firmly established? When they're ba'achtas. So you see, so we said before that you don't need to have them all together. It could be separate. And now we're saying they all have to be Ba'aguda. So what's the teretz? Tanoi. The Tanya. Lulav bein agud bein she'ein agud kosher. The Tanakama says a lulav, whether it's tied together or not, it's kosher. Yehuda Omer, agud kosher she'ein agud pasor. Yehuda says, if it's not tied together, it's pasor. My time it would be Yehuda. What does Yehuda learn? This time, Gomer, kicha, me'agudas ezev. Learn it out from the Ezoiv, like we said, that you tie it together. That the Yidden in Mitzrayim. Where's the Rashi? Anyway, it says in Mitzrayim when they brought the Korban Pesach, they dipped the Ezoiv into the blood of the Korban Pesach. They put it on their mashkof. So it says a lashon kicha on that. I'm sorry, it's very small and not good lighting here. It says, "Lekachtem aguda ezav v'taltem adam asher basaf." It says by Mitzrayim that they took it, and it says also over here, the lekachtem lechem creates other. Right? You have to take the dalaminim. The Rabbanim don't have this Gzer Shabbat. Second, Kman Azal Hadatanya, Lulav mitzvah la'oigdai. Then la'oigdai kosher. It's a lulav, it's a mitzvah to bundle together. If you didn't do so, it's kosher. Come on. Ikar b'Yehuda la'yagdu amai kosher. According to Yehuda, it's possible. He holds it's ma'akev. Rabbanan my mitzvah. The Rabbanan don't darshan kicha. So why are we saying it's a mitzvah to ma'agid them? So the Rabbanan my mitzvah mishum zeh keli me'amveyu. Even according to the Rabbanan, it's a mitzvah that you should do so because it's more beautiful like that, and this is being mahader the mitzvah by tying it together.
They don't hold that the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
You're saying you don't see necessarily that it's more beautiful tied together.
I mean maybe someone.
Rafal, one thing you should know You don't start up, especially when you have a few like quasi Hasidic people. You start talking about what's a beautiful lulav, what's a beautiful esrog. They're going to explain to you that they can see the beauty in things that you might not imagine. People can see beauty. I said, I'm sure my sons and sons-in-law could give you a half-hour dissertation about how beautiful it is, the different things that to me I don't see. I'm not going to question it. Zok the Gemara. Sheva hazois sheba para. These are the seven hazois that you do, the paraduma, right? You take the paraduma outside of Yushalayim and burn it, and then you'd be maza the dam toward the oil made. Akvazu azu. You're missing any of them, it's ma'akav. Chuka. The Torah says chuka. Sheva hazois shal bein habadim. The seven hazois, the seven sprinklings that the Kohen Gadol does on Yom Kippur between the poles of the Aron Kodesh, Sha'al Mizbeach Hazav, and the ones that after you take out the dam into the Heichel that you would do on the Mizbeach Hazav, Sha'al HaParoiches, and the even though we say al, it really means toward the Paroiches, which is the curtain between the Aron the Kodesh Kadoshim and the Heichel. Ma'akvazu azu. All of these hazois, if you're missing any of them, it's ma'akvav. Now, there are a lot of different karbanos. Besides Yom Kippur, you also have the hazayas for the Paral and Davashal Tzibur and the Parkai and Mashiach and various Chatois Pnimius. So, the Yom Kippur say Chukah, the Parkai, Mashiach, the Paral and Davashal Tzibur, Udesiri Avatzis Kechavim, those of all of these karbanos, Kedetanya, Asal Apar, Kasha Asal Apar. Torah says if you remember the beginning of Vayikra, the first the Torah describes the Parkai and Mashiach, describes the whole Avodah great length. Then it describes at great length the Avodah, the Par Helm Davashal Tzibur. Then afterwards it says you should do the Par Helm Davashal Tzibur the same way as you did the Parkai and Mashiach. But you already described what to do. Why is the Torah repeating it? So when it says Vasal Apar, Kashasal Apar, Ma'atabalayma Lichval Bahazois, it's coming to make a shana lov la'akiv shemchisar achas min menachos layasa klum. That if he didn't do it, it's going to be ma'akiv. He's not going to get a kapara. Tan Rabba sheva hazoy sheba para sha'asam bein shaloi lishmon ben shaloi mikuvanois psulos. The seven hazois that we discussed on the par of para aduma, if you do them either shaloi lishma or you did them not toward the oil mayid, they're possible. B'shebifnim, the hazayis of the chatois pnimius, b'sheb mitzayra, and those of the and the oil of the mitzayra that goes on the bayin yadei al bayin raglai and on his eisen, shaloi lishma psul. And if you do it shaloi lishma, it's possible. Shaloi mechavanis ksheris. But if it's not toward the when you did, I'm sorry, we're not talking about we're talking about what you do from the Mitzayra toward the Kodesh Kadashim. The putting on the ears is not a hazah, it's an asina. We're talking about the dayis toward the Kodesh Kadashim. So Shalai Mekavan is ksheris. Even if it's not, and if it's not facing the right direction, it's ksheris. Frak Gemara. Patanya gabi para shaloi l'shmam psulas shaloi mechuvanes ksheris. The para aduma, I believe, if it's shaloi l'shman, it's going to be possible because it's hukash to chatas. The Torah calls it a chatas, so therefore, back in the beginning of Zvachim, we had the paraduma is included in the psul of a chatas that it's going to be is also, but shalom kavanis is ksheris. Amar Chizda leikasha harab Yehuda haraban. So we're going to have the next Amid is going to be dealing with this question, and you have to keep it in your mind because it's going to take a long time it's going to take a long brayso that we'll discuss the machlekes of Yehuda and Rabbanan until we finally get to how that addresses this question. But then afterwards, we're going to have other terutzim for this brisa, for the steer and the brises. But the question is, in one place we say that if you misdirect the order of the hazais, or not the order, the direction of the hazais of the paraduma, it's kosher. In one place we say it's not kosher. Close this. Give me a second. No, it's my fault. We should close this.
It doesn't look like you'll close that often.
What?
So it doesn't look like you close that often.
Not so easy. Yeah, no, my wife is, we're still like in boxes all over the place. We came in late last night. We got through about a tenth of it. So I don't want you to be distracted by the avodah going on behind me. So this is why I'm surprised no one told me about the WhatsApp thing on CBN. Nobody's involved in CBN. It's a WhatsApp group for from people. At least not news articles. So my wife did like an interview about her work and about delegating and how she has 7 kids and how she manages. But it was very parav. But like one of these from WhatsApp groups posted it, and like hundreds of people have contacted us that they saw about her. They had nothing to say. They just said, "Oh, now she's famous." It's such a good example of how superficial fame is. It's nothing. Every single person called knew already that she has 7 kids, that she works at Goldman Sachs. There was nothing mechadish.
And therefore, that's why you had to move because the Jewish paparazzi was inundating you in Tom's River. Now you understand.
You'd be surprised. I called up my Rav because Mishpacha magazine wanted to interview her, and then a few places asked her to speak at conferences. So I called him up just because it's fun to ask him that he would speak by the Jewish Orthodox Feminist Alliance. I said, "Do you think it would be good for maybe she could come? She could influence them." His face turned purple, and he's not the most flexible. Menachos, you know Rabbi Kerzner? Yeah, not his cup of tea.
I thought you were talking about Rabbi Yaman.
Oh, no,
Pick your poison.
Okay, I'm not going to say on YouTube, but what I think about it. But Rabbi Yaman just spoke 40 minutes this Shabbos against Rabbi Stefanski's, Eli Stefanski's Daf Yomi Shir. He's really yeah, he was very hot and bothered about it. Anyway, no comment. Where are we up to? We're learning Menachos, right? I feel like I am like Eli Stefansky. I go on like a 2-minute diversion. In any case, so this is the question. We have one brisa that says if you do the hazoyas of the para aduma in the wrong direction, one says it's kosher, the other says it's possible. So we said it's a machlokes harav Yehuda Rabban, the Tanya, and it's going to take us a long time before we get back to this machlokes of Yehuda Rabban and how it impacts this question. So you got to keep it in your mind. The Tanya, mechusrei kapara. As we know, there are different levels of tumah. The lowest level of someone being tamei is someone who's mechusrei kapara. That means when a person becomes tamei, there's some types of tumas that you go to the mikveh and you taivel and it goes away immediately. There are others that you have to wait for the night, and that's a full yom. And then there are others like a yeledes, for example, who even after they were taivel and they waited this however long it was, and they waited for nightfall, they still have to bring a carbon before they get their full kapara. But the tumah that's left at that time is the weakest tumah. So mechusri kapara shenichnesu la'azara b'shoigig. If they went into the azara by mistake, you're not allowed to come into the azara when you have any kind of tumah. Chayiv chatas. The chayiv chatas. The measured eine karas. They do it b'measured the chayiv. They get karas. Certainly it's full yaim who hasn't even waited for nightfall. And certainly someone who's fully tamei, they're going to be chayiv. As the Gemara will make clear, these tahirim, it's talking about I think it's talking about a kayan who goes in when he doesn't have an avodah to do. So they went somewhere they're not supposed to go. Even a kayan who doesn't have avodah can go, as we're going to see, into, and this is something, Rafal, you've asked about. Like, can you go into the Azara? Can a Yisrael go into the Azara? So it's not clear if this is Midaraisa, Midarabanan. L'chayr it's Midarabanan, but then the problem is why we're talking about Achatas. But the Yisrael, who's not doing Avodah, he doesn't do Avodah, he can go into the first 11 Amos of the Azara, the rest of it he can't go. So certainly a Kayan as well. So Tchitzas. And if the Kayan who doesn't have Avodah went past those first 11 Amos, which is called the Machni Yisrael, Lahechel, or if he went into the Hechel, which is certainly a place he's not allowed to go, Lahechel Kuloi, Barbaim, he gets 40 Malchus. He goes into past the 11 Amos, or to any part of the Hechel, he gets Malchus. In Beis LaParoiches, if he goes in to pass the curtain between the Heichel and the Kodesh Kodashim, meaning into the Kodesh Kodashim, al pnei kapyrus. The kapyrus is the cover on the Aron Kodesh. Or if he went not just past the curtain, but he went all the way up to the Aron Kodesh, the Misa. He gets Misa b'dei Shamayim. That's the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan hold there's Misa b'dei Shamayim, both for coming into the Kodesh Kodashim as well as for approaching the Aron Kodesh. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Kol Heichel Kuloi Umibayis LaParoiches Barboy. He says certainly going into the Heichel is Malchus, and he says the Mibayis LaParoiches going into the Kodesh Kodashim until you approach the Aron Kodesh is only Malchus. It doesn't get Misa like the Rabbanan. He's more Mekel. He says Beis LaParoiches is only Barboyim, it's only Malchus. But there is Misa b'dei Shamayim for someone who goes to the Kaparos. But my commitment, what are they arguing about? So come about high crop. They're arguing about this possible. This is why we said we're talking about a Kayin who is coming in when he doesn't have Avodah to do. We're talking about a Yisrael. That would not be this pasuk. This pasuk is saying is a direction to tell Aaron, to Bnei Aaron, the Kayanim not to come without a reason. So we say, first of all, into the Aron Kodesh, and toward the Aron Kodesh. The Torah says if he does that, he's going to die. Rabbanan Sari ala Kodesh below Yava. Right? It says al Yavai, which is a lav, and it says ala Kodesh, meaning the Kodesh is a reference to the Heichel. But anything past that, both both past the curtain into the Aron, into the Kodesh Kodashim, as well as approaching the Aron, is going to get Misa b'dei Shamayim. He puts the middle part, right? There's three things: Kodesh, Beis LaParoiches, and Al Pnei HaKapayros. So he puts the Beis LaParoiches together with the first group, that it only gets Malchus. And it's only going toward the Aron Kodesh that gets Misa b'dei Shamayim. My time of the Rabban. What is the reason? I mean, we just said the reason, but why do they disagree with Rabbi Yehuda? My time of the Rabban. Isak had come Rabbi Yehuda, if Rabbi Yehuda was correct, that the Beis LaParoiches, meaning inside of the middle case, the inside of the Kodesh Kodashim, is included is the Malchus Lichterach Mana ala Kodesh Vel Pnei HaKapayros V'lei B'ayim Beis LaParoiches. Just say that someone who goes into the Kodesh gets Malchus, and someone who goes up to the Aron Kodesh gets Misa. And I would know if it meant to say that you get Misa also for going inside the curtain, it would say that because that's a bigger chiddush than going toward the Aron Kodesh. If it says that you chayiv for the heichel, you certainly chayiv mi beis laparoiches. Mi beis laparoiches the cause of Rachman Allah. Malish ma mina b'misa. So that's how the Rabbanan know it's saying that it gets misa b'nei Shammai. Rabbi Yehuda, ikas of Rachman Allah kodesh v'loy kasav mi beis laparoiches. If the Torah had said Ela kodesh and it didn't say mi beis laparoiches, that like you're suggesting havamina my kodesh mi beis laparoiches. I would think when it says mi beis laparoiches, that's a reference to the heichel. I mean, no, you're only going to be chayiv malchus from beis laparoiches. Avol heichel lav, lav nami loy. There wouldn't even be a lav on the heichel. So I would misunderstand. I would say if it didn't say el hakodesh, if the Torah would say el hakodesh and wouldn't say mi beis laparoiches, I would say it's still referring to mi beis laparoiches, and the heichel would be potter altogether. For Rabbanon, nahulei matzasamet, the heichel kulei ikri kodesh. No, you can't say that. Kodesh means beis laparoiches because heichel means kodesh. Shenema v'dila haparoiches lachem bein hakodesh u'bein kodesh hakadoshim. The Torah says the paroiches is distinguishing between the kodesh and the kodesh kadoshim. Kodesh means the heichel. Don't tell me kodesh would mean inside of the kodesh kadoshim. Rabbi Yehuda, my time. And why does Rabbi Yehuda disagree with the Rabbanon's analysis that they say that that both the beis laparoiches is also going to be part of the Misa. Just say al kodesh and base. You get al kodesh, you get malchus, and base paroiches, you get Misa. But by al pnei kaparis, it doesn't have to say by the Aron. But I mean, base paroiches and Misa al pnei kaparis. Oh yeah, you certainly don't have to say the Chaima. I'm not sure what happened with ein Einshim in Adin. Al pnei kaparis because of Rachman Allah shmami no al pnei kaparis misa based on paroiches bazar. I guess it would not be a kal v'chaimer per se. It would be nichlal. The Aron Kodesh is also part of the Kodesh Kodashim. Rabbanon hachanami lo yitzarech. Rabbanon say enachanami. You're right. V'haygos v'chan al pnei kaparis lemutei derech meshupet. But we had to say al pnei kaparis, even though we could have just said in the that you get for. We had to say al pnei kaparis lemutei derech meshupash. You had to say it in order to tell you derech meshupash that if you do it, reason why we had to say both of them, even though you asked to include the other, we had to say al pnei kaparis as well as beis laparoiches, to tell you that you can't do it miderech meshupash, that you only have for going in, but without at a time you don't have to do avodah if you go in through the regular entrance, which is on the east side. But if you go in through the bottom, if you make a tunnel, if you go from the back, if they make another entrance, you're not going to be chayiv. Whenever it says pnei on the face, it means the eastern side. When you approach from the eastern side. Yehuda lemakra pnei, my al. Yehuda says, if that was the case, let the Torah say pnei. Why does it say el? Shamina el dafka. Yehuda says this is incorrect because if Yehuda disagrees, because he says why would the if you're only going to be chayiv, wants to tell you the din that you're going to be chayiv if you come from Kedma, let's just say pnei. What do you have to say? El hakodesh. El pnei hakaparis, I should say. So it's coming to tell you, no, that only el pnei hakaparis gets misa and not coming in within the paroich. So Rabbanan, el lav dafka. Rabbanan say el is not a mashmayis. You can't be mashma. But the fact it says el, then it means that you go toward it. That's going to be mechayev. Rabbi Yehuda Amar El Pnei HaKaparis Dafka. According to Rabbi Yehuda says the El means bedafka, then it means that you have to when it says El, that only when he comes to Al Pnei HaKaparis, not when he just comes into the paroiches. He's El Noichach Nami Daf. Now we're finally getting back to our original question. right? We had said that the para aduma, one brisa says that it has to be bedafka toward the oil might, and one that says it's even if it's not toward, it's still kosher. Yehuda, he says El is dafka, so he's a El is neichach is nami dafka, and if you don't do it, it's going to be possible. For Rabbanan, with the hasam lav dafka, hachanami lav dafka. Rabbanan would say no, by the paradum it's also lav dafka. Maskal or Rabbi Yisrael Yehuda, with the El dafka. You have to add in a word here, but I can't remember what it is. Al nami dafka. If you say El and El is toward, and al is on. If you say El is dafka, so on is also should be dafka. El the mikdash sheni delay have aron mekaparis hachanami delay avid hazois. Torah says you should make a hazah al kaparis. But there was no aron and kaparis by the mikdash sheni. It was in here hiding. So, and it says al, so therefore you shouldn't have done hazais. And we know that they did do hazais in the mikdash sheni. They had the kohen gadol and Yom Kippur go in and do the avodah. Amar Abarula, Amar Krab, Chipar es mikdash hakodesh, makam hamakodesh lekodesh. Says that even though al would normally be dafka, but since the Torah says the Chipar es mikdash hakodesh, it tells you even that the makam is kodesh. It doesn't have to be, but dafka the aron is there. So that's the first teretz on the question, the steer and the brises of whether you have to have mechuvin toward the oil might. Rava Amar, Hava HaRabbanan. Both of them are the Rabbanan. Neither is Rabbi Yehuda that says that both of them are the Rabbanan who argued with Rabbi Yehuda and says that you don't have to do it. Which way? I forgot which way it is. We're going like a review that we're going like the Rabbanan that you do bedafka have to do toward the al neichach pnei hakodesh is dafka, but if he does it toward the mizrach and ma'ariv in a easterly direction toward the oil mayed, even if it's not pointed in the right direction, but he's going toward the east, which is the direction like we do, right? When we daven, we're not pointed right at the Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash could be offset, right? If let's say you're 100 yards away and you're going toward the east, it might not be directly toward the oil mayed. You're still going to be va'adi, and he sprinkles. That's going to be kosher. But if you do it totally in the wrong direction, that's possible. Amar Mar. So when we said that it's good, even if it's not in the right, even not toward the oil might, it means as long as you're going toward the east. Amar Mar. We said the chatois hapnimis and the azois of the mitzayra. If you do it shaloi lishma psula, shaloi mechuvanis ksheris. But if he's not pointing it correctly, it's kosher. Vatanya bein shaloi lishma and bein shaloi mechuvanis ksheris. I always said even if it's shaloi lishman is kosher. Why are we saying shaloi lishman is possible? V'yeshaloi kasher hara b'liyazah hara rabbanan. This is back machlekes all the way back at the beginning of Zvachim. We said chatas shaloi lishma is possible. All the other kabbanas are kosher b'lei olabayim shem chayva. And then we had the question of the asham. Rabbi Eliezer says the asham is like a chatas. Rabbi Eliezer the makish asham lechatas. He's makish the asham to chatas, and that it's going to be possible. Makish nami loig asham, and he has a hekesh of loig to an asham. So just like the asham is possible, shaloi lishma, the loig shemen of a mitzvah is also possible shaloi lishma. Rabbanan le makshi, and the Rabbanan are not makish. Rabbi Eliezer hekesh chayzum malamed behekesh. Moshe says, but what are you saying? How could you have a hekesh? A double hekesh. We know we only can do one level of hekeshim. We're not going with Rabbi Eliezer. Kan lahachshir, kan lahat. So when we say that shaloi lishman is kosher, it doesn't mean that it's a kosher carbon in a chanami. It just means that it's kosher. And the man that says possible just means he's not going to get hartzah, but he in a chanami the loik shemen of a mitzayra does have to be lishma. But if it does not lishma, it's not oil l'bayim l'shem chayim. Shkoyach.
Thank you. Have a great day.